Hi, welcome back to Deep Images. We are beginning an incredible new series. It's one some of us have wanted to do for a long time, and we finally got it together. We're going to be covering samurai films, or chanbara as they are known in Japan. Some people call them chambara. Um, with me today is CF Roberts, my co-host, and Justin Cotton, the co-host, and the great Bill Mulligan. And the four of us
Right.
are going to be covering some classics and some lesser known ones. Um, just to quickly put it into context, pretty much samurai movies. So the samurai were prevalent in Japanese culture for like the Edo period, and Edo it ended up becoming Tokyo. But the one period was ruled by something called the Tokugawa shogunate, and it lasted from I guess the 1400s to 1863. And then there was a Meiji era, and the Meiji era, which lasted from 1863 or 1868. I have it written down. It's in the 860s, 1860s until 1913. The Emperor Meiji took over. So basically, he westernized and industrialized Japan, which there's a downside to that because then they tried to take over the world, but but they got over it. But So some samurai mainly functioned during the shogunate era. The shogunate were basically like it's like a political thing. I mean, they were basically like the political bodyguards. They all had swords. They all had to know all these arts, and basically they kept the peace or whatever. And there's been a lot of criticism of them, especially from Japanese people and Japanese creators and filmmakers about how they abuse their power, because when you're growing up and you hear about samurais, you think they're all heroic and wonderful, but actually, maybe only a small percentage of them were heroic and wonderful. So we're going to talk about some movies that show kind of both sides, and the movies taking place in the Meiji period they're also samurais, but now you're starting to segue into the Yakuza films. So the gangs come out, naturally it gets westernized, and then something like the mafia happens. But they use a lot of the same fighting techniques, weaponry, whatever that samurai did. So there's a lot of movies that are kind of, on that cusp as a hybrid between a Yakuza and a samurai. I'm going to cover one of those. But then there's some most that are like strictly samurai. So, and it can be any kind of samurai story as long as it got a samurai in it, and we want to talk about it. So, I am going to turn it over to Bill Mulligan for the first one.
Well, thank you, sir. The great Bill Mulligan. Wow, that's awesome. Uh, so I've got two films here, and they both take a negative view of the samurai, one far more than others. And the first one I want to speak of is Harakiri from 1962, directed by Masaki Kobayashi. And this is not just a great samurai movie. This is one of the greatest Japanese movies ever made, and that makes it one of the greatest movies ever made. As much as I love Kurosawa, The Seven Samurai, first time I saw it, I was just blown away. I love that film, but I think
Yeah,
this is a superior film. This is an amazing film.
it's next level.
Yeah, it really is. And if you have someone who doesn't, I don't like foreign movies, I don't like having to read the subtitles, show them this movie because it's just so good. And boy, is it I don't want to say anti-samurai. It goes a step further. It's anti-Bushido.
Yeah.
It's anti the code itself. Samurai can be good or evil like anything else. This is questioning foundations
Yeah.
of the samurai themselves, the myth behind them, and by extension, Japanese society as a whole. Okay, so it takes place somewhere around early 1600s, and this is the rule of the Tokugawa shogunate.
Mhm.
When they won the civil wars, one of the first things they did, as one does, and when you win a civil war, is pretty much clean house. And those clans that were on the wrong side were dissolved, their leaders forced to execute themselves, leaving a lot of armies of samurai masterless. So you have these highly trained, um, high status individuals who are starving
Yeah.
and also very good warriors. It's a bad situation.
Yeah.
The story takes place a Ronin, a masterless samurai, older gentleman, someone who has a great deal of gravitas. That's Tetsuya Nakadai. I am probably mangling these
That's
names.
pretty close.
Amazing actor.
Yeah, I
He shows up.
personally, I
Mhm.
personally believe he's the greatest living actor, film actor right now.
Is
I
he
have to
still alive?
yes, he's like 90. I
Wow.
mean, I'm qualifying it. I'm not saying stage actor. I'm not saying, but I think he's the greatest living actor on earth, film actor on earth. That's
Wow,
just
that
my
you could,
opinion.
based on this film alone, you could make that argument. He shows up at the estate of a clan, the IE clan, I think.
Mhm.
I don't know how to
No,
pronounce
you
any of
got
this.
it pretty good.
And he basically he wants to commit seppuku. And it's more than just killing yourself. It's a whole ritual.
Mm.
It's not something you do alone. You want to do it, with all the honor, all the pomp and circumstance. And very importantly, there has to be someone there to put you out of your misery by decapitating you once you've done the whole procedure, which is not just stabbing yourself in the belly. Oh, if only. It's, stab yourself, run it across, thrust upward. I mean, it's absolutely horrifying way to go. And
Mm.
you're doing it to yourself. And then once you've shown, your honor, someone mercifully decapitates you. It even goes further than that. If they do a good job of it, if you manage to get like Shogun Assassin, you got Ito Ogami doing it for you, they would decapitate you, but leave a little flap of skin right at the front so that your head would not just go bouncing down the alleyway. It would
Right.
just sort of flop over. Holy criminy, it's just like if you think you're living in bad times, you just don't know how times are. So he wants to do this, and they're like, listen, you seem like an honorable guy, and we get all this, but let's tell you a story about what happened a short time ago to try to talk you out of this because they really don't want to be doing this. Apparently, it became something of a scam for masterless samurai to come to a clan, make this, hey, I'd like to kill myself here. Instead of having to go through all that and everything, they would just pay them a few shekels and send them on their merry way, or even give them a job. It was just they were basically being extorted. That's how they felt. So they tell a story about not too long ago, a young man, much like yourself, except much younger, came and made the same offer. And we decide we are sick of this. We are not paying this guy off. We're gonna call him on his bluff. And so they say, okay, yep, well, let's set up the table and everything. And the guy like immediately gets the flop sweats and he's like, okay, look, could you give me 3 days to go back and settle accounts and everything? And they're like, no, no, nope, you got to go do it here. They find out that this guy is so poor, he doesn't even have swords. Well, he has swords, but they're made of bamboo.
Mm.
They wouldn't be able to cut through tofu. And he now has to use his own bamboo swords to disembowel himself, which is, one thing when you've got one of the sharpest swords known to man, and it's another thing when you got a piece of bamboo. So he is forced to do it there. It doesn't go well. The sword breaks off inside him. He dies horribly, absolutely horribly,
Mhm.
taking a bad situation and just making it worse. And they tell the guy this story, and he's like, "Well, that's really something. I have never heard of this guy you're talking about, and I am really sincere. I definitely want to do this." And they're like, "Fine, whatever." They're getting ready to do it, and he's like, "By the way, you have to pick the person who's going to behead you." And he picks three of their best samurai, and they realize every time they send someone out, "Oh, go get Master whatever." They each come back, and it's like, "Oh, he's ill." Like, well, that's interesting. Um, what's going on? So then this guy, Anshiro, tells his life story. And his life story is a very sad one. His clan was one of the ones abolished. Um, he planned to die next to his lord, but another one took his place, but extracted a promise that he would raise his son. The son is the young man, the story they recounted. So that was a total lie that he didn't know what they were talking about. And they're poor, but they're going through a lot of stuff and everything. But he marries, I think it might be his daughter, the older gentleman's daughter. They have a son. Things are okay, but then the baby gets sick, and he's so desperate. The younger man sells his swords. That's why he has the bamboo swords.
Mm.
Things don't get any better. There's just no money, and that out of desperation, he went to the clan to make this offer. When they told him no, he honestly was going to go back, settle some accounts, and then come back and kill himself. He had that much honor, but they didn't even give him that. They didn't even throw him that bone.
No.
So now they realize, this guy's got a personal thing going on. And that's when he starts going off on him and tells him that the whole code of Bushido is just bullshit. And they're getting angry. How dare he say this? And that's when he takes out the top knots, those little bits of hair that the samurai have in back, and tosses them on the ground. And we see then that, there's been flashbacks, and now there's another flashback where he went to each of those three men whose name he had called, and challenged them to a battle
Mm.
and beat them all, and didn't kill them. That'd be too quick. He did a greater humiliation. He cut off their top knots, which is such a disgrace, such a loss of face, that the only proper response to it would be to kill yourself, which the last of them, the most honorable, the best fighter of the three, did. The others are just saying they're sick. And now this has been a very talky movie, a good movie, great acting, great story, and everything. But you know what we came here for? It's a samurai movie, and now it's time. And this is where it goes off. Okay, it goes off a little into Shogun Assassin territory, but not really. This guy is a great samurai, and he's pissed. He has righteousness on his side. He knows he's going to die, which is a very valuable thing when you're fighting. If you intend to die, I think it was Frank Miller's Ronin. If you intend to die, you can do anything. When two people are fighting with swords and one of them is trying to kill the other guy and live, and the other one is just trying to kill the other guy, living is not really in the cards.
There's a
The only reason
Japanese
he
word
wants,
for that too.
yeah,
Moratori. We who are
yeah,
about to
right.
die.
The only reason he wants to live is that he can kill the next guy. But, he knows how this is going to end. And it is going to end that way. He's taking on the entire clan. And he does a respectable job. He kills four or five of them, wounds a bunch of the others. They're not going to be doing any. Someone else is going to be feeding him rice for a while. I mean, there's the bloodshed. It's realistic and not realistic. I suspect sword fights were nothing really like what we see in these, but it's stylistic. It's really well done. The composition, the cinematography, everything about this is aces. His last act is to desecrate the body, the suit of armor that they have as like the symbol of the clan's greatness, and then he commits seppuku, and they shoot him.
Hmm.
I mean, there's absolutely no honor in
Yeah.
these people at all. And when it's over, you might say, well, I guess they kind of won. But did they? They've got to lie about, because they can't let this story get out. So they come up with some cock and bull story, and folks, the other guys whose top Nazi cut off, they have to kill themselves, and they all got sick and died. I mean, they just invent this lie and go on, repatch their armor and put it up there. But he knew, as with his last breath, he knew that he had stripped bare all the hypocrisy, all, the truth behind the ugliness behind all the pomp and circumstance and everything. And you're like, damn, this is the most anti-samurai movie you could ever come up with.
Well, it's very
It
political. It's very, I mean, their whole
Very
system is
political.
very political and
And
is should be
anytime we're
used
talking about
allegorically.
anytime we're talking about Japanese cinema, we're talking about a country that had risen to incredible heights, and then through pure hubris was brought incredibly low. It's hard to imagine a greater fall than Imperial Japan taking over as much of Asia as it wanted to by any means necessary, and not losing a wink of sleep over it, to post-war Japan,
Yeah.
which I think is probably best shown. I gotta say, of all the movies about Japan, the one that probably best shows post-war Japan, Godzilla minus one.
Hmm.
And one of the things that people really like, wow, I had no idea it was like that. It's like, yeah, absolutely, forget the atomic bombs. The country was firebombed to oblivion. I
Yeah.
mean, it's amazing that people were able to survive. That all these people who made these movies that we're talking about, they lived through that.
Yeah,
This
they
is
were
this
they're
was
all
their
pretty much
reality.
finished
Yeah.
in World War II.
That leaves scars you can't even imagine.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not surprising that having, been led into a disastrous war, allied with the worst people on earth against, the world, and there was no chance they were going to win any prolonged war. You know, yeah, you're going to kind of rebel against authority to a degree Americans can't even imagine. I mean, can you imagine being Japanese and realizing these people, these sons of bitches, got my family killed, my land destroyed. I mean, everything just unimaginable.
Perform medical
So,
experiments on them.
yeah. Now, they may not have been able to actually make a movie called God Damn, I Hate You People, but you can make a movie set 300 years ago with similar
Hmm.
characters, and you can do things like that. I've always been fascinated by when you see artists who like the horror movies from Spain when Franco was still
Mhm.
alive,
Oh yeah,
and how
Yeah.
they just use vampires instead of
they're all
Franco.
political.
Yeah, it's cool. It's
It's
cool to
weird.
see that. Well, this is just a great. I cannot recommend this enough. This is not a hidden gem. Everyone knows this movie is great.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
on most top
now
100
I've mentioned it to
10
some
list.
people, and I think the one bit of resistance people might have is the actual title, because Harakiri sounds like an exploitation film. And in fact, all the smart boys that are out there now, oh, actually it's not called Harakiri, it's called seppuku. It's like it's a legit word. Um,
It's
Shut up.
called both either.
Yeah, yeah, just watch the damn film. It's just really well done, really well acted. There's no flaw in this movie. It's just that damn good. The scenes where you're just listening to people talk. To me, the real mark of a great filmmaker is where you can make a compelling scene where it's nothing but a guy talking, and then we'll have the flashback to
But
show,
the way it's
when things.
staged is
Yeah,
incredible. The way he uses space, kind of like Kurosawa does in Rashomon, or Ozu does in his movies. I mean, it's amazing. I
yeah.
mean, the way he places figures in the setting, and then he does the close-ups of them talking, and he's just kind of got that mastery of how to put it together.
And I should mention that Kobayashi is not a one-hit wonder.
Oh
He
no,
also made the absolutely amazing Kwaidan, which
some yeah.
the ghost story anthology in color, in gorgeous color. You look at a movie like this, it's in black and white, and it absolutely should be in black and white. It's
Yeah,
just stunningly beautiful black and white. But then you see them what they do in color, and you're like, oh man, maybe that should have been in color too, because this guy knows what he's doing.
they were
It's
just
like
master craftsmen.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
he's like when I watch Black Sabbath by Bava.
Mm.
Oh, gorgeous movie, absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's like it's made of silver, and you're like,
Hmm.
this nothing. Of course, this has to be in black and white. But then you see Mario Bava Black Sabbath, and you're like, oh, hold on, well, hold my horses here.
You mean Black
This guy,
Sunday, then Black Sabbath?
right, right, Black Sabbath, yes, exactly. Um,
Yes.
they, he
Just
just,
just recently at my local cinema about 3 weeks ago, I saw a double feature of the original Godzilla from I think early 50s, 1954, and followed by the second film was the 2023 version of Godzilla, which might be the minus one, but
Yeah.
yes,
it was
Oh
yes,
also
wow.
it was an amazing film, and it was also in black and white. But both films, including the original, you could tell how heavily influenced they were by the thought of the atomic bomb,
oh,
Oh yeah.
which
absolutely,
was not that many years before the 1954 version, actually. So,
9 years.
yeah,
no,
and there was quite a kind of a poignant scene in the first film towards the end where people it's like they're in mourning about the destruction that Godzilla is wreaking, but you
hmm
can tell there's an analogy to the atomic bomb.
Mm.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's there's that'd be worth doing a whole episode itself, because it's an interesting thing, because on the one hand, you could say Godzilla is clearly a metaphor for the atomic bomb, but then again, so is the oxygen destroyer,
Yeah.
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 which is used to end it. And one could make an argument that what they're saying there is that the atomic bomb, while it was an atrocious thing, was necessary. It was necessary to have that to end the, Imperial Japan.
Hmm.
In that
Uh,
case, Godzilla is a metaphor for Imperial Japan itself. Yeah, there's layers here. There's
Well, Imperial
layers there.
Japan is weird because it only really existed for 50 years. I mean, it built itself on the corruption of the shogunate, and they
Yeah,
just seized the power. And within 2 generations, they're like, okay, we're going to conquer the world with these other cats. And it's like you sold out your own people, basically. I mean, it's you put your own, which that's what these countries do when they do this.
right.
They throw their own people into the meat grinder or on the operating
It's a bit
table and
like almost
experiment
like
80
Putin at the
31.
moment. Yeah,
What'd you say?
it's a bit like Putin and Russia just throwing more and more troops at meat grinder
Oh,
escapades.
Putin's not the one throwing the people in the meat grinder. That
Yeah,
America and
I,
NATO are
I, I
doing
agree
that.
with you that
Well,
there is complexities on that one. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I
Because
mean, now we got North Koreans being thrown in the meat grinder. I'll bet they're not caring very much. It's like just walk forward.
one of
That's
those
where the
senators
landmines are.
said, one of those senators not long ago who was a Republican who said yeah, we're going to keep fighting the war and funding the war till the very last Ukrainian is dead. Said it on camera. Nobody batted an eye. Not one Democrat protested. Not one Republican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is how people. This is what we're living in. But don't get
Well,
me started.
that's what I had some friends who friends of the family who were Egyptian, and that was their line about the Middle East. It's they would say, yeah, the Saudis will fight to the very last Egyptian.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to this. Highly recommended. Where is it available?
What's on
You know what?
Criterion? Which
On the Criterion channel?
they're all half. No, I mean it's on Blu-ray. It's half off.
Oh, sure. I
It's
was
not.
just wondering if there's any viewers
It
out
might be
there
on
who
the
would,
Criterion channel. I haven't seen it anywhere else or streaming, but it's good bet it's either on there or going to be back on there.
let me just see.
Sure, sure.
Harakiri. And there was a remake by how do
Miike.
I pronounce this man's name correctly?
Takashi Miike.
Takeshi.
Takashi
Yes.
Miike.
Now I have not seen that.
I've seen it. I'm a
I
Miike
can't.
freak. I'll even watch his movies that might not be good. It was a fine movie, but
Right.
it was not memorable,
Right.
and it
It's
wasn't up to the original.
I just
What
can't
was it
imagine it could be.
called? What was the Miike version called?
Harakiri.
Oh wow, okay.
But it
Yeah.
also had a subtitle, which the original didn't, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay, so
Did he
this
set it at that time? Or is it in a different time?
oh no,
No,
it
no,
was yeah, it's
yeah,
a
it's a
period
straight
piece.
remake in color. It's just,
Oh.
some of the plot details are a little different. It's not as long.
I'm
But
not
he also,
against remakes,
no,
but there has to be a reason that you
yeah.
remake it. And I
Yeah.
can't think of a reason to remake this film.
Well, it wasn't well
Yeah.
received, but he remade 13 Assassins, which a lot of people liked in the old days, but was kind of forgotten. And then that movie became financially one of Miike's biggest hits after
Yeah.
Edition. So you just never know. Uh,
I just want to say, according to Just Watch, Harakiri is available on Apple TV. You have to rent them. It's available on the Criterion channel for free.
okay.
So if you have that channel, and that sounds like a good one to have, but it's also available on Apple TV, Amazon Video, but you have to rent it for that.
Yeah.
$3.99. It's worth the rental. Trust me on this. So
Yeah, I don't rent
that's
movies
mine. That's
anymore,
my
but
first movie.
if you have to rent a movie, yeah, rent something like that.
Right.
Absolutely. Um,
And I just want to say, please, out there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends. And if you know any truck drivers, they got to go on those long hauls, and listening to music just puts me to sleep. But listening to people talk about movies, that perks me up, especially if I disagree with what they're saying. Yes, son of a bitch, and that'll keep the blood going. But I
I
can't
mean,
imagine
we're
anyone
not
disagreeing with me on this one.
yeah, we're not a true crime channel, but it gets about that level of controversial sometimes, but it's all in
What
good
some of these
good
people
spirit.
did to movies is a crime. They should they
Yeah.
should have been imprisoned. But this is what cinema's all about. This is a just an absolutely great, heartbreaking movie.
Chuck, have you seen this film?
No, I've not, but I know its reputation, and
I'm okay. Yeah, it's one of
I've
those
I've heard all
yeah, it's a
about it.
must see. I saw it in 95. I rented it at Blockbuster. Nobody else in town had it. And to be honest, I'd never heard of it. I knew about Chambara, but I'd only seen like Lowen and Cobb, and at that point, I think I'd seen like one, maybe Rashomon, maybe one or two. Not even Seven Samurai, Kurosawa's. But I didn't know much about Nakadai. I thought he kind of looked like the guy in High and Low. It turned out he was the guy
Yeah.
in High and Low, but uh,
Yeah, he's also in Yojimbo and or Sanjuro,
He's in a
isn't he?
ton of Kurosawa's, and it's funny because after him and Kurosawa and Mifune fell out, there's like Kurosawa in black and white with Mifune, and then Mifune, and then there's Kurosawa in color without Mifune. In my opinion, that's how
Yeah.
I've always felt. And the latter has some classics, but they're not on that level of the earlier ones. However, he
Yeah.
did a smart thing. He made Nakadai his main guy because really there was no one else who could. And in Ron, Nakadai played a guy way older than he was. And actually in Harakiri, he played a guy at least 10 or 15 years older than he really was too. And
Yeah.
nobody recognizes Nakadai and Ron or whatever with all that beard and makeup. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
when
is
I
he is the lead character?
oh yeah, he's the whatever King Lear
The
character.
King Lear
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that. That's a
proxy.
great performance.
Well, he's such a brilliant actor that he's a chameleon. I mean,
Hmm.
I've seen him. One role of his I'm very fond of is a spaghetti western called "Today We Live, Tomorrow We Die." I forgot the director right at the second, but it was written by Dario Argento before he did Bird the Crystal Plumage, when he was just
Oh
a
wow.
critic, and he wrote it. He had written Once Upon a Time in the West around that time, and Montgomery Ward plays this very Django-esque character and has the whole like assemble the gang kind of plot like the Magnificent Seven. And the foe is a guy named James Elfago. So, the hint, I guess, within the story is that he's probably Mexican. But it's Tatsuya Nakadai, and he's got short hair, and he's got a mustache and a goatee, and he's got this, wonderful little vest and primrose outfit, and he uses a
Wow.
machete against his enemies as much as a gun. And he grew up with the main character who's supposed to be a half Kiowa, but obviously he's not, but in the actor. But yeah, it's a great movie. I mean, I think Argento started out really as a strong writer, and the fact Nakadai would do that movie and his English is flawless. They didn't. I mean, he dubbed his own voice in English, so yeah.
Wow.
Keep a lookout for anything. Oh, and he was also the star of a movie Chuck and I covered for the channel that's just gone up a few days ago, Belladonna of Sadness. He plays Satan himself.
Ah,
He
Oh
voices him.
wow.
And man, they score with that one too. um, any last thoughts on this one? We could probably talk all day about it, but
watch it.
yeah, that's what it boils
Well,
down
it
to.
gets a good rap if you say it's even better than the Seven Samurai. So
I mean,
It's more
in that
better.
area,
soulful.
You're talking about two of the greatest movies ever
Yeah,
made. I guess I've watched Seven Samurai so many times
yeah.
that after a while, it's so long. But
I
if I
think
had
too
to
much
modern
just
to get
pop
through.
one
audiences,
film in, it'd probably be this one.
yeah, in a way, I think some modern audiences would definitely prefer Seven Samurai because of the
Oh, great
storytelling and
story.
the action. But I also think there are some modern audiences of younger people who would prefer Harakiri because it is kind of edgier and it is really visually kind of more experimental. And I'm not knocking either movie,
No,
obviously.
they'd
We
probably prefer Seven Samurai for a big reason. I notice a lot of people nowadays don't like unhappy endings.
oh well, that's a good point.
And Seven Samurai, there's a few of them left alive. It ain't seven, but there's a few. This one is a bleak ending.
It
And
is.
I get that response a lot when I talk to my students, which is what I base all my beliefs about young people on. So it's a small sample. But oh yeah, the movie was good, but I hated the ending. It's like, why'd you hate the ending? It's like, well, they all died. It's like, dude, it's the mist. Of course they all died. Shut up.
But you never
Um,
forget the movie unless you're just
no,
tense.
no. And but that's another thing. Growing up in the 70s, unhappy endings were the default expectation.
Yeah, of course.
There's no horror movie from the 70s that had a happy ending, except maybe The Exorcist, kind of, sort of.
Sort of.
Uh,
Halloween.
yeah,
Sort of. It
yeah.
had a happy ending for Reagan, but not completely
Especially
happy.
if it's low budget. If it's a low budget horror movie, if it's a
Oh
low
yeah.
budget horror movie about vampires, I guarantee the very last shot of the movie is when the hero and the heroine think they've gotten away. They turn to each other, and one of them is a damn vampire
Oh,
every
one of them's
single
got the
time.
teeth.
One of them's got the teeth, flat comes toward the camera, freeze frame,
The end.
Even
Yeah.
the
Ganja and
end.
Hess. Ganja makes it out of the movie, but Hess doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, but boy, yeah, boy, it's one weird ending on that one.
Oh, it
yeah.
is. It's amazing.
Uh,
I wanted to say about the one trope that
the
Bill
movie
described.
left my jaw on the floor. Sorry.
Oh no, no, it's okay. I did a mediocre review of Ganja and Hess, and it wasn't very widely watched. I'll have to go back and watch it, but it's one that we could redo one day. But that trope of the one lone Ronin or samurai fighting like anywhere from a few dozen to hundreds, and it has now become it's classic. And when you see a movie like that, I tend to have an expectation for it. Like, I expect he's going to mow down a lot of people, and I want to see how he does it. I want to see how he's injured. I want to see how long he lasts, how dramatic it gets, what's at stake. And Harakiri was the first movie I saw like that. Since then, I've seen a ton, but Mike is really good at that too. Like Blade of the Immortal is just wow. And there's quite a few others, but Sword of Doom, which we'll be covering soon. Anyway, so we're going to wrap up this one and we'll be back with more samurai films. So remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you love or hate us. And we'll see you next time.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.